Well, welcome everyone. I see participants just coming in, which is really awesome. I'm Charlie Matthews. I'm the CEO and the founder of Empowering Pumps and Equipment. I'm really excited to be here to talk about sustainability. It's one of my favorite summits that we do. And, it's because we have so much information that is out there and so many amazing industry leaders that are working on this. And so, without further delay, I will go ahead and introduce our first speaker. We're going to talk about, and I love this, how y'all have it. Let's heat up for a net zero by 2050. Let's heat up and really just get started, kick this off with Naomi Jabari. She is going to talk about decarbonization and heat transfer. That's definitely where her background is. She's a mechanical engineer with a master's in science and energy from Texas A&M University. Go Aggies. Recently watched them play some excellent basketball. But she has 15 years experience in the oil and gas industry and energy transition. And she is really passionate about net zero. And I've seen her as part of the chairman for the Net Zero Forum at Valve World Americas. She's also done a lot of great work at a lot of different conferences, but her interest is really around that heat transfer and process technologies for the oil and gas and clean energy, such as hydrogen production, carbon capture technology, and biofuels for the sustainable energy production to reach net zero by 2050. So without further delay, Naomi, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to start this sustainability summit with net zero by 2050. So I want to share my screen and you can see my slides. And we can go over there.
I'll
Okay.
let you know when we can see them. It's
Yeah. So do you see my screen?
Not yet. I
Okay.
still see you.
See me. Give me a few more seconds.
Welcome, Ahmed. I see you. I'm so glad. Thank you for being here early. For everyone who was early, thank you for that. We were just, checking to make sure everything was working, giving you a little me time before we got started. All right, Naomi, we can see you. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. So you see the black screen with
Yes.
net zero by 2050. So thank you, Charlie, for introducing me. My name is Naomi Jabari. I'm mechanical engineer. I have Master of Science and Energy. And a few years ago, I asked myself how I could use my heat transfer knowledge differently and differently to learn more about the new topics in the energy market. And that's when my interest in climate change and the sustainability grow. And I focused on economics, policy, law, and process technologies for energy, including carbon capture, biofuel, and hydrogen production. And my background in heat transfer drove me to explore these energy topics further, especially the relation to the larger climate change conversations. So during this presentation, I will try to talk about net zero. And because I see everyone's life, professional life in energy market is changing due to energy transition, and we see hydrogen, carbon capture, and biofuel projects are growing every year. And electrification is changing everyone's professional life and our traditional energy market quickly. I will try to reply three main questions today. What is net zero and why is net zero important, and how to achieve net zero? I'm sorry, there's a noise in the background.
Okay, I'll try to fix that for you.
Oh, okay. So the main reason for all changes in the energy market is global warming. Greenhouse gas effect was discovered in 1824 by French scientist Joseph Fourier, and we know atmosphere passes visible light and traps infrared. CO2 and other greenhouse gases trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere. And nature's carbon cycle normally keeps CO2 level in balance, but human activities, mostly the burning of fossil fuels, produce more CO2 than the atmosphere and oceans can absorb. In 1988, UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, formed to study human activity in climate change. Social cost of climate change is too high. So it is important to have climate models and predict the temperature increase for the future. Thanks to heat transfer, thermodynamic, and fluid mechanics sciences, climate models have been developed based on principles for conservation of energy, conservation of mass, and conservation of momentum. Data science and technology improvement help to improve the climate models every year. In 2014, IPCC introduced representative concentration pathways, RCP, describing different levels of greenhouse gases that might occur in the future to predict global temperature increase by the end of 21st century. It was the first shock to everyone about global warming impact. In the Paris Agreement, for first time, countries agreed to work together to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees, and sustainable development scenarios were developed to reach the goals. In November 2021, with COP26, energy transition and climate change discussions continued about limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees based on net zero emission pathway by 2050. So the science is crystal clear about global warming and climate change. So it is changing everyone's life all around the world. And we are all responsible for the future to find feasible solution to global warming problem to minimize greenhouse gas effect, especially CO2 emission from energy sector with minimum social cost. I'm sure at least everyone in energy market has heard about net zero by 2050. In 2021, US rejoined the Paris Agreement and set an ambitious, nationally determined contribution to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and launched the Global Methane Pledge. The International Energy Agency released the first comprehensive energy roadmap to reach net zero emissions. It was published in May 2021, and it was a turning point for the energy market and explained what would need to happen in the global energy sector in the decades ahead to limit global warming to 1.5 degree compared to pre-industrial levels. And there's only 50% chance to reach it. So this is the important point we have to consider when we talk about net zero. This ambitious goal counts on 7 key pillars of decarbonization: energy efficiency, behavioral changes, electrification, renewables, hydrogen and hydrogen-based fuels, bioenergy, and carbon capture. To reach net zero emission, all available technologies and emission reduction options should be used. And it's clear that new technologies will play significant role in energy transition and net zero. We also need universal international cooperation. So all countries should contribute to net zero. An orderly transition is also required to reach net zero. So we cannot cut fossil fuels from the market immediately. The question I hear a lot is if the 2050 net zero goal is achievable or not. Actually, since 2021, many changes have taken place. And unfortunately, energy sector's carbon dioxide emission have continued to rise, reaching a new record in 2022. The summer of 2023 was Earth's hottest since global records began in 1880. The months of June, July, and August combined were warmer than any other summer in NASA's record, and 2.1 degree warmer than any average summer between 1951 and 1980. Global carbon dioxide emissions from energy sector reached a new record in 2022, 37 billion tons. It's 1% above the pre-pandemic level. These are not good news. Obviously, the world is way behind, and 1.5 degree warming limit is at risk. In the UN Climate Summit in COP28, officially acknowledged that fossil fuels are the root cause for climate change, and countries agreed to triple renewable energy capacity and double the global rate of energy efficiency by 2030. My next slide is about US long-term strategy. So let's see what's going on in the United States about net zero. The long-term strategy of the United States to specify pathway to net zero by 2050, published on November 2021, and it represents the steps to reach goal of net zero emissions no later than 2050 to keep 1.5 degree on global temperature rise. The United States is simultaneously pursuing multiple climate mitigation goals with multiple pathways for the American economy. And all pathways start with delivering on our nationally determined contribution in 2030. This will put United States firmly on track to reach net zero by 2050. In this graph, you see the goals in different colors. Green dot lines, line shows by 2030, goal is up to 52% emission reduction below 2005 levels, covering all sectors and all gases. By 2035, the goal is 100% carbon pollution-free electricity. And the red dot line shows the goal for net zero emissions no later than 2050. Some states have already established targets to zero out emissions from all sectors of the economy, some that are more aggressive than the federal government. And some states such as California has 2045 target to reach net zero emission. And 80% of the US representative pathway to net zero is based on transforming energy sector. It is based on increasing energy efficiency, decarbonizing electricity, and using fossil fuels with carbon capture. It's still in the picture. And energy transition with hydrogen and low carbon fuels. And heat transfer will play a significant role in all of these stages. I'd like to talk about hydrogen a little more here because hydrogen plays significant role in US strategy to reach net zero by 2050. The U.S. National Clean Hydrogen Strategy and Roadmap has been published by Department of Energy based on 3 key strategies. First, targeting strategic high-impact uses for clean hydrogen. This will ensure that clean hydrogen will be used in the highest value application, where limited decarbonization alternatives can happen. The second strategy is to reduce the cost of clean hydrogen. So we know the cost of hydrogen must be reduced significantly. U.S. clean hydrogen strategy focused to reduce hydrogen production cost to $2 per kilogram by 2026 and $1 per kilogram by 2031, and also delivery and dispensing cost to $2 per kilogram by 2030. So this is called the hydrogen shot. This is called hydrogen shot. It is the target is to reach $1 hydrogen cost per 1 kilogram in 1 decade. That is called 111. And it will impact a wide range of end users. If the US economy market can reach the ambitious goal of hydrogen shot, hydrogen can be used for all sectors from transportation to power generation, which would create very high demand in the US and global market. The last strategy is to focus on regional networks. Last year, 7 regions have been introduced as hydrogen hubs in the United States, with focus on hydrogen production from natural gas and biofuel with carbon capture, and also electrolysis with renewable or clean electricity resources. Based on several models and analysis for the United States, clean hydrogen production will be increased from nearly 0 today to 10 million metric ton per year by 2030, and 20 million metric ton per year by 2040, and 50 million metric ton per year by 2050. So by achieving a 5-fold increase in hydrogen production by 2050, the total greenhouse gas emissions in the United States could decrease by approximately 10% relative to 2005 levels when all hydrogen is cleanly produced. But there's a question here. What is clean hydrogen? We know hydrogen is a clean fuel and only produce water when it is burned in fuel cells, but it doesn't mean hydrogen production and transportation to end user is a clean process. Using color code for hydrogen production is common way to specify if it is clean. Production such as blue hydrogen from fossil fuels with carbon capture, or green hydrogen from water electrolysis process with renewable electricity. But clean hydrogen production standard by Department of Energy has established a target for well-to-gate life cycle greenhouse gas emissions. So during hydrogen production, the greenhouse gas emissions should be less than 4 kilogram CO2 production for 1 kilogram of hydrogen production during a taxable year. This is what we call clean hydrogen, so regardless of the color code. So to see if hydrogen production is clean or not, we need to include all emissions including fugitive emissions from upstream and delivery to hydrogen production facility and process. We also need to consider greenhouse gases from the electricity and also any carbon capture process and sequestration, and any other emissions generated during hydrogen production. So the other greenhouse gases and fugitive emissions, such as methane and NO2, should be considered in the model when we are evaluating clean hydrogen production. So how we consider them in the model? By using equivalent global warming potential for each greenhouse gases to calculate equivalent CO2. So I have a slide here that may surprise you. So it shows hydrogen can be produced through various methods, and emissions intensity of each of these pathways depends on some variables such as carbon capture, fugitive emissions, and the use of clean electricity. So let's compare carbon intensity for different hydrogen production methods in the US current market. This figure shows well-to-gate carbon intensity of hydrogen production from steam methane reforming and electrolysis based on Department of Energy's model. 95% of hydrogen in the US is produced through SMR without carbon capture, and less than 5% includes carbon capture. Electrolysis from grid is less than 1%, and electrolysis from renewable is also less than 1% now. Biomass and pyrolysis is less than 1%, but it has low carbon intensity. So the carbon intensity of well-to-gate emissions for electrolysis with current US electricity and grid goes up to 2 times higher than SMR without carbon capture. That is interesting. So water electrolysis with US grid is much more pollutant than steam methane reforming from natural gas. And it shows that how US grid is pollutant now. However, based on US long-term strategy, US should reach 100% carbon pollution-free electricity by 2035. So hopefully carbon intensity for a water electrolyzing will drop to 0 when electricity supply is 100% CO2 free from renewables or from fossil fuels with carbon capture. But there's still another issue that we have to solve, and that's water supply for water electrolysis. So this is another issue we need to consider when we talk about net zero. And at the end, I want to see how energy consumption has been changing in the US during the years. I have 2 slides here to compare. Energy consumption in 2022, and I compare it with pre-COVID in 2018. In 2022, the energy combustion was 100.3 quads, and in 2018, it was 101.2 quads. So I don't see significant change in the energy consumption. It seems that slightly decreased, but that's not significant. Comparing to 2005 with recent years, it shows consumption of energy with natural gas and renewable resources has been increased. So it means we consume more clean energy in the US comparing to 2005. And I want to compare CO2 level in the US. Let's look at CO2 emission from energy sector. Carbon dioxide from energy sector has been decreased about 5% comparing to 2018 pre-COVID. And from if we look at this graph, CO2 from electricity generation has been decreased about 13%. And it is because of increasing renewable electricity production in the US. Comparing 2022 with 2005, CO2 level has been decreased about 17%. So we see for the same energy consumption level from the previous page, we could reduce CO2 emissions in the US. And that's a good news for us. The new technologies in the US help renewable energy costs to be competitive with fossil fuels in long term. And we see the result in the US now. So up to 2025, US energy markets needs to reach about 26 to 28% CO2 reduction compared to 2005. And it seems that it can be achievable since we already reduced up to 17% CO2 in the US market. This is the last slide I have. I think I've covered everything. It was my favorite topic. I like to talk about hydrogen. It's very hot topic now in the market. And I really appreciate time and opportunity. And I'll take any question.
Thank you, Naomi. You can stop sharing your screen now, and we'll, I don't see any questions, but Becca, let me know if there are questions that I missed. I am excited. It does sound like there is a challenge, but the exciting part is that we are able, because we have these technologies and we're working on it together. I always love when it's water and energy. Those industries that we have to talk to each other, they're all combined together. And so I know there's definitely some of the water industry listening in. And so Naomi, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how do you want them to reach out to you?
You can connect me through LinkedIn, send me text. I will immediately reply. I check my LinkedIn every day, and you also can shoot me an email.
Awesome. And so Ahmed asked, only 50% can be actually achieved of net zero. I guess he's asking, can more of?
50% chance. This is based on the current technologies, but we count on the new technologies in the US and also in global level. So we hope to increase the chance with having the new technologies in the market when the new technologies are commercialized, because there are lots of new startups and new technologies, but all of them cannot be commercialized. So let's see what will happen after 2030.
Yeah, I think that getting the cost down, like you were saying, that will help people want to use that and kind of enter the market too, right? It'll be more accessible for more people. It's very interesting and full of information that we need to know, Naomi. So thank you for that. And I do love your passion for sustainability. You have spoken at the EPIC event, so the Empowering Pumps and Industry Conference last November. And you're a great role model for this sustainability in general, because it does cut across, energy sectors and people. And so I always love hearing you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Becca.
We're going to take just a short break while we get 2 minutes to get Michelle plugged in here. I see Michelle, if you want to just jump on the screen, we'll make sure that you're logged in and ready to go. And Naomi, if you'll just stop sharing your video, we should be good to go. Hey, Michelle.
How are you?
I'm doing great. See you with your renewables behind you.
That's me.
Wonderful. Do you have anything to share on the screen or just talking? Okay. Just going to
Okay.
make sure that you could do that.
There we go. Can you see it?
We see it. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, y'all, thank y'all so much for being here. We are on time. How did we do that? I never am very good at that. So thank you, Michelle, for being here. Y'all, it's really a great topic, circularity, but embracing circularity, we have to kind of like agree, right? We have to like go in with it. And so I think Michelle is going to tell us a little bit about that. Just like thinking about the end in mind, what are we trying to accomplish? And, once you have used a product and what do you do with it? That is, I think, just common, just in your everyday life. And then of course, when you're, working with industrial products and so on. But Michelle, you are a local product manager on renewables, and you are strategically, I guess, working in the wind converter sector, the generation or generator business in the US, from product to service. I think that's really important. So not just on the product side, but the service side as well. Bringing 20 years of experience from industrial motors, drives, electrical power distribution, for critical environments across industries. She is a champion for circularity. Like I said, she's advocating for this and implementing sustainable products and practices there at ABB and beyond. So Michelle, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to learn from you today.
Thanks for having me. It's really great to be back again. It's always great to get together with some really amazing people and talk about what is my favorite topic, which is circularity. So I'm really glad that I get to continue to have this conversation. We had a little bit of one last year, and maybe we can recap that discussion from before, and then we can move on and talk about what we want to talk about this year. So last year we talked about life cycle extension. So lifetime extension through different modernization options, maintenance options on your equipment, how they fit into that circular economy. We're going to talk a little bit about that this year, because along the same lines, we need to continue that discussion on the circular model, but really kind of broaden our reach to see how we can better plan for that model from the beginning. Before the point where modernization options need to be defined and developed, we really need to be focusing on these options in the design phase of the product. So if we look at those options for the equipment and the design phase, we can implement features that are friendly to that those really much needed options in a circular economy approach in the manufacturing process. When we talk about circularity, you hear a lot about scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions when dealing with carbon neutrality. So a quick review really of what does that mean. Scope 1 emissions are direct emissions. So that's what comes directly from your company controlled assets and resources. Basically what emissions are being produced by the organization, whether that's stationary combustion, fuels, heat sources, mobile combustion, maybe what's in your fleet vehicle that's not electric. Fugitive emissions are those that could be like refrigeration leaks that are coming from your operations, maybe process emissions that are released in industrial manufacturing. Scope 2 emissions, that's where your energy is consumed by the company. So think of that as like the lights on in your building, HVAC that's consuming energy in your operations, really what's being consumed by the facility, and maybe if you have electric vehicles in your fleet, really what's being used. And then, if you think about supplying that electricity from a more responsible source, that's going to be something like renewable energy, like the wind that I'm so passionate about. So the scope 2 is actually the easiest to calculate because you're going to see it on your electric bill every month, or maybe on an EV charging account utilized by your fleet vehicles. Scope 3 is really what we're talking about today, and it's the indirect emissions that aren't going to fall into that scope 1 or scope 2 category that exist in the operations of the organization. So there's several categories in scope 3 emissions. It's considered one of the areas most difficult to track as a company. So this is how making more responsible choices in your purchasing, like materials, machinery, can reduce what has been generated had your purchasing path maybe not been a more responsible one. So it's really about that cradle to grave aspect of what is being purchased and how we can do better to design our products that fit into that circular economy, and then reduce those scope 3 emissions of our customers, organizations that utilize our products. So why is it so hard to calculate? Because they're not going to show up on your utility bill, your EV charging account. They're actually generated by your suppliers. So for example, if I use steel in my manufacturing, the scope 3 emissions for the steel are actually at the steel production level. So the detail really isn't generally provided to me unless I ask for that or they provide it. So as a manufacturer, by working to reduce my own scope 3 emissions that I pass along, I can then work to reduce the emissions of my customers with more sustainable processes with my manufacturing and supply chain operations. So this means that we need to design products and drive a demand for products and services that can support the initiatives by encouraging life cycle services that are going to extend the useful life of the equipment that we manufacture and sell. So in a circular economy, we would have a way to take the materials and truly reuse them at the end of the life cycle of the equipment. So this would reduce our scope 3 emissions as a manufacturer, and then anybody downstream from us in the activities of the equipment when we sell that into the market. So scope 3 emissions, they make up approximately 70% of a business's carbon footprint. And like I said before, it's actually the hardest emissions value to calculate as an organization, but it doesn't absolve us from putting forth that focus and effort in doing that. So when we talk about mitigating this from the beginning and planning and measuring and minimizing the emissions, the part that we play as a manufacturer or consumer becomes really much more transparent. So scope 3 for a manufacturer can be all levels of emissions for my supplier, or it could be just limited to maybe scope 1 or scope 2 of the supplier. It just depends really on what category that we're discussing. And so I guess the question then is, why is this important as I might be looking for new capital goods, or a company produces capital goods for another company? It's really that main impact that I can have on my customers' scope 3 emissions. So I do this by designing out the waste. I get pretty excited talking about this. Being in manufacturing, I hear from customers all the time about recycling. Look at how much I recycled, and that really is the measure of their sustainability in a lot of organizations with their scope 3 emissions. This is kind of what we talked about last year, that circularity is not all about recycling. There's a lot of other options along the way that are better. So we really want to have a good understanding of the needs of the equipment that's being installed at a facility and how they can go from that linear approach of take, make, waste to a reutilizing approach fitting into sustainability goals, working towards that net zero that we just kind of watched about with the hydrogen, and in the end making the world a better place as we all work to lessen our carbon footprint. So this I showed last year. If you joined last year, we spoke really about this butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So for those that don't know what this is a quick simplistic explanation. So what this represents here is the continuous flow of materials in a circular economy. So one side on the right represents the technical cycle, and then the side on the left is the biological cycle. So the biological cycle is where nutrients from biodegradable materials are returned to the earth to regenerate nature. Think of the cycle as an orange. So the peel is the packaging, and it breaks down to regenerate the soil as it's composted. And then the orange itself feeds the animals and people and is used in energy production. And then as it breaks down, a new orange tree is going to grow. So the technical cycle, the right side of the diagram, is where the products and materials are kept in circulation through reuse and repair and remanufacturing, recycling. So the focus on that technical side is how do we allow for those materials to remain in use rather than becoming waste. So each loop in the diagram is an extension of the life cycle of the equipment, representing maintenance, refurbish, and recycle. So in our society, in the past, we really didn't follow that model of the butterfly diagram in the technical cycle. We really just followed a model of I build it, I sell it, you buy it, you use it, you recycle it, and then throw it away when the life is gone. So that's the linear model. And it's one that has a very firm beginning of raw materials and a very firm end of disposing it once it's got to the end of life. So we really need to have a discussion and foster a discussion of how we can dig deeper onto a more circularity level and move away from these legacy ways of doing things. So this is a direct quote from our website. It's called a circular approach to and life cycle thinking. And normally I'd kind of paraphrase, but I thought it was pretty good to kind of read through it. So since the early days of industrialization, the traditional model of running a business has been based on the linear approach to resource consumption that follows a take, make, dispose pattern in which raw materials are extracted from mines, used to manufacture a product, sold to a customer, and then disposed of when it no longer serves their purpose. So, however, a linear approach doesn't necessarily help eliminate waste optimally, nor does it protect industries exposed to business risks associated with resource-connected supply chain disruptions. So, such challenges call for a different economic model, one based on a circular approach to value creation or a circular economy. So, following that take, make, take pattern, the industrial system is restorative or regenerative by intention and by design. So the core aim is to design out waste and not simply eliminate waste. A circular approach, also known as closing the loop, encompasses three basic strategies: designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and material in use, and then regenerate natural systems. So focus on regenerating the resources. So if you compare that butterfly diagram, it's the technical diagram that we're discussing. We want to design the products to reuse, refurbish, and service. Service is very important. We want to design to incorporate materials that are sustainable and can be replenished. We want to make that product last longer. And there are ways to make a product more serviceable that can be focused on in the design phase, and we can use resources that can be regenerated and use renewable energy to power the facilities where possible. We all know motors and generators. I love them. They really make the world turn every day. They're also made up of 98% of recyclable material, which is phenomenal. So they're a perfect example to start with on my a little bit oversimplified explanation of all of this. So if you go to many facilities across the globe, finding a piece of equipment that is 20, 30, 40 years old isn't uncommon to see still in operation. So we all know that today's motors are a lot more efficient than motors from 20 years ago, and that parts are really getting more difficult to find to repair some of those older systems that are out there. And aside from that, efficiency standards for motors have changed over the years. Motors consume 28% of the world's electricity. So as operations managers review life cycle assessments of their current facilities, things like these old motors that are still in operation are the very first things identified that need to be replaced. So when the search begins for the right type of equipment to support the operational needs, as a producer of this equipment, we need to make sure we're designing to those needs as well as to the needs of the global community. So we should be enabling the reduction of our customers' carbon footprint by designing to the circular economy. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that a system fits into those sustainability goals? So when we talk about sustainability, we're talking about keeping the object in its current state for as long as possible. So this is one attribute of a circular product. Thinking back to the technical diagram, circular products have a life cycle. So when we talk about creating these sustainable products, we need to ask, can we service it? Can we fix it? Can we easily upgrade it to the latest technology without replacing and disposing of the current system? So all of this is really managed in the design phase of the product. And we need to be designing equipment that can be upgraded as new and more efficient technology is introduced, allowing for the owner not only to maintain the equipment to keep it working at today's standards, but as improvements come along and technology advances or just simply a refresh is needed, we need to have the ability to make the equipment like new while creating as little waste as possible. So getting back to the example of the generator or the motor, remembering that it's 98% recyclable materials, that 30-year-old system can then be broken down, recycled, and the materials reused. So this is important when it's decided that we can't use that old motor at any other location. We take that motor to a recycler who breaks down the materials and then readies them for reuse. So the motor manufacturer then purchases the recycled material from the recycler, and then those materials from the recycled motor are then used to manufacture the new system. So that this motor is then is just purchased, needs to have a clear and long life cycle plan, one that has a recommended maintenance plan that can be provided to the service provider or the service team to complete the maintenance on a regular basis and ensure that the new system operates when needed today and for many years into the future. So how do we make this work? Utilizing recycled materials in manufacturing is a new initiative. So historically, it's faced a bit of a perception that recycled materials are somehow inferior. So with processing changes, according to the World Economic Forum, these materials can be utilized in our current manufacturing processes, causing disruptions to our current dependence on virgin raw materials. So if those facilities are powered by green energy, the materials then are really a much more sustainable model than that linear model of the past that we're used to. So this is how we really can make a very big impact as it comes to those Scope 3 emissions. And then as members of the global community, how do we make this work? We really need to begin to change the perception of quality of recycled materials. And this is done through processing recycled materials to ensure that the durability and quality of the product are tested and verified. And this might be modifying the material manufacturing process, or maybe investing in some new infrastructure to accommodate the changes, depending on what those materials are. And with some materials, this is happening today. So in the example of the motor that we've been discussing, we're actually doing that. We have a factory overseas where we're taking the materials from the old motors and then using that to make new. And this enables the circularity that is so important to the future of manufacturing and preserving our natural resources. So by making the changes like this, we're driving to reuse instead of consume virgin raw materials. There is not an endless supply of those materials. So we really have to make sure that we're conserving where we can. And we also need to focus on how we're powering our facilities. So by diversifying and expanding how we get our energy today to run our facilities, we stand a better chance at meeting our energy consumption targets without running out of resources to produce that energy. So this is a first step. The first step, sustainable design, that's going to start with the materials that we can repurpose, or what can we make with the recycled materials. From that, a product that is sustainable would also be serviceable and repairable. So sustainably designed products or services have the entire life cycle considered during product development. In that process, life cycle longevity and optimizing the product for reuse are all a focus as it comes to sustainability. So this includes the ability to modernize the system, continuing to transform it to the latest technology to avoid having to remove that entire system and replace it on some kind of replacement schedule basis when new options and features come out. And then in the end, when the system really no longer is useful in its current state, every bit of that piece of equipment should be able to be repurposed in some way. So whether that's reconditioned to start its life again, broken down into components that can be used in manufacturing of other products, and then focusing on zero waste in the design process, that's how you get to that top standard level of the circular economy. And I know it's super simplistic on how view of that product life cycle from the beginning to the end. It really does fit into the sustainability goals of an organization. So as the owner of the product, it isn't about installing it and then forgetting it. Throughout the life cycle, there's a role that's key to play as the owner to have that product meet the goals of those keeping the operations moving for really that maximum amount of time. So that lives in the maintenance schedule, keeping up with the modernization solutions that are available. It's like your cell phone. I have an iPhone and I get a notice, I don't know, seems like once a week that I need to update my firmware in the operating system. So some of these enhancements really are specifically for efficiency in the operation of the phone. Not only is that regular maintenance important, but mechanical and operational upgrades, along with digital firmware upgrades and any digital enhancements can all work to maximize that useful life. And digitalization, it's everybody's favorite topic. It's such a wide scope of things to talk about. So there's many ways that digitalization is affecting life cycle processes today. Designing equipment with the future in mind to allow for upgrading equipment to newer technology with minimal waste produced through digitalization. We can take equipment that has had 10 or more years in operations and then bring features of today's latest technological advancements to the product. So all of this can be done without having to replace the entire system. This brings the benefits of more efficient features and then a restart of the product lifecycle through modernization at later stages in their use. So using data to optimize operations is the next stage in the evolution of sustainable operations. And it can be managing efficiency with a PLC in your operations or utilizing options to maximize productivity in, say, a hydroelectric generator by increasing water flow through the dam or using directional wind flow data to optimize the power generation of a wind farm. Or really it can be monitoring the temperature of internal components and then understanding how that system is reacting in peak generation hours. So by understanding the data that's applicable to the operations, owners and operators can use that information through analytics to alter how they're operating to keep the systems at that top tier level of uptime and productivity. Utilizing your digital analytics in a plant and facility operations can work to limit trips out to the equipment, and then understanding proactively when a visit is needed and further increasing sustainable operations and responding to issues in real time instead of repeat visits out to the site that are both difficult from a labor shortage standpoint, but also in kind of that mean time to repair. So with the industrial market facing labor shortages, supply chain issues, and then an ever-growing demand for responsible solutions as we move into that next industrial revolution or digital revolution, areas of digitalization that before were not adopted are now going to be adopted due to necessity to fill those gaps that are being left with issues like labor and supply chain. We really need to have those new and innovative ways to address. So through the struggles that are found in dealing with life cycle issues within the market, as the last generation of service technician retires, and then companies look to rebuild that bench strength of knowledge, remote diagnostics, and monitoring of the equipment have changed the way that really of how a service technician of the future looks like. So it can start with a digital twin that perhaps provides a behavior model of how a piece of equipment is going to react to test changes before they're implemented, so that what that would do is limit the need to work on the equipment as hands-on as maybe we did a few years ago. And when customers may not have been keen on connectivity in the past, I think we're going to start to see that mindset changing just a little bit. So the leaders of today really grew up with these kind of conveniences in their day-to-day since they learned how to walk. So they look for that same level of accessibility as they move from operational efficiency that they're used to having in their daily lives, right? So, hey, Alexa, turn my music on. All of that belongs in a circular economy as well. So for reasons that we discussed earlier, and then for many other reasons we're still learning about, what this means is digitalization and optimization go hand in hand in the production plant of the future. And we're going to see that those days of offshoring production to other countries where maybe labor is cheaper, we're going to see more automation and manufacturing, and then a reshoring of those operations, building the need for digitalization much closer to home. So more automation equipment means more techniques of servicing that equipment, and then keeping it online and working efficiently to make that circular economy much more relevant for today's maintenance management. So to summarize everything we discussed, sustainability and the discussions of a circular economy, they aren't going anywhere. And as countries push towards sustainability goals of 2030, the manufacturing process is the next place to look for savings on those Scope 3 emissions and reducing our carbon footprint. So this starts with the discussion of sustainability when we're in the design phase. We need to design products that start with materials that perhaps have had a life cycle before. And then and this is bringing their next useful life back to the start. So the products have to be serviceable. We can't design to dispose. Through digitalization, we can reduce the need to be on site, maybe as often as we had been in the past, working on the equipment from a distance and keeping the equipment running through firmware upgrades and remote diagnostics. So predictive analytics are going to allow us to address issues before they happen instead of rushing to diagnose something after it's happened. And with digital twin technologies, efficiencies can be tested out prior to making system changes to eliminate failures and unforeseen incompatibilities, allowing for continued production before disruptive installations. So we need to be able to refresh the equipment periodically and have the equipment last for years and run efficiently. We also need to be able to modernize the equipment without having to rip and replace it. Retrofitting new technology into older equipment footprint uses less materials and reduces our carbon output as we keep up with the new features and efficiencies in today's technology. And when it's all said and done, and we don't have a way to refresh the equipment to like new, we have to be able to take that equipment back into the manufacturing process by reusing the raw material or reusing the materials in the equipment as we build new, and plan for circularity with the end in mind. So by focusing on the future for the global community, we're all going to help to make the world a much cleaner and more sustainable tomorrow.
I love it. I love it. Great job, Michelle. Thank you so much. We do have a question for you. Ahmed has asked us, what do you mean by to keep the current state as long as possible is embracing circularity?
So it's how long can you use that? You don't want to buy something and use it for a year and throw it away and start over. So when you really look at something that fits into that model of circularity, it's how do you extend the life? I think we talked last year. It's like, hey, I throw my phone away every 2 years because I've got to get the latest model, and we shouldn't do that. We should use the phones like we did 20 years ago, where you had the phone and you had it for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We should be designing to extend the life and then be able to upgrade little pieces of it from a technological standpoint to get today's feature on that equipment.
Yeah, I love that. have all the little, phones that I'm like, what do I really do with this? So that was one of my questions about the recycling, and just like, who are the big players that people can go to? Are you seeing more people talking about that, kind of that resource that's out there?
I think that they are. I know that from our standpoint, we at a global level have a partnership with Stena Recycling, so you can actually find some materials on the ABB website about it if you look for our large motors and generator production facilities. And we're even looking at, how do we do that? Same thing here in the United States. So, if you just kind of start digging into it and talking to, if you're a manufacturer, talk to your local recycling facilities and see what options are out there.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. Great wealth of information. I did put in the chat your last, our last sustainability summit, so everybody can get access to that. It's on demand. A lot of great speakers there. And Michelle, thanks for your contribution there and today. Well done. It always motivates me and makes me think, okay, there's something that we can do, So, Michelle, if you'll stop sharing the screen, and if my participants in my next session, which is on sustainability, the workforce panel on sustainable workforce. See y'all coming in. Thank you again, Michelle. Welcome to hang around. Just jump off of the video. So
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm on gallery. I see. Let's see who I see here. I've got Cameron, Saoirse. Did I say your name right, Saoirse? Okay. Good.
Yes.
Yes. And then Carla. Wonderful. I'm excited about this panel. It's been just a great morning already. I've got all the good feels about sustainable energy and what the future looks like. But what about our people, right? And so I can't wait to just kind of dive in with that in mind. We are on time, so that's great. And so I just want to introduce y'all a little bit. Carla, I'll start with you. She's the CEO and founder of Minute Consulting, specializing in empowering manufacturers and companies to develop and retain the next generation of engineering leaders. With over a decade of experience in engineering and program management across a diverse organizations. And she's really passionate about this, y'all. I got to interview all of these people on the Empowering Industry podcast, but absolutely love your passion for what you're doing there. Saoirse, Dr. Saoirse, she is the former semiconductor tech executive from Texas Instruments. Y'all have heard of that. If you've got any kids, you've bought something from Texas Instruments. But she has co-chaired the Technology and Manufacturing Women ERG. She supported over 100 employees across the globe. 3 continents, 8 countries. She's been a keynote speaker, an entrepreneur, podcast host, and inventor. And she has a PhD in material science engineering. And I could go on and on. It's just a really amazing background that you have. And what I found most interesting is where she uses her technical expertise and engages the workforce development gap, specifically in the semiconductor industry, which is kind of on that fringe. We were just talking about kind of the materials we need to recycle and all. And so this industry is booming, which I really enjoyed that conversation we had. And then Cameron, I can't say enough about Cameron. We've been friends forever, but he is also a senior account manager at Parity, responsible for the New England region. He has a diverse background in engineering, marketing, product management, sales. His current role is where he works with residential building owners and operators to make our properties more efficient, through continuous control optimization. So I also love that Cameron's bio says in his free time that he enjoys cooking and baking bread, the sourdough kind, and also plays the violin. And he was most recently, in our thought leadership session. And so you've seen him out and about on our socials. I'm really excited about where he's taking this sustainable, I guess, mindset to the next generation. And so we're going to just dive in. I am, like y'all can tell, right? Like I'm so energized right now from the conversation. And I do have a couple questions. Carla, I'm just starting with you all day today. So y'all say hello. Let's make sure your mic works before I just go on and on and on. Carla? She's on mute. And then Saoirse and Cameron.
Yeah. Good morning, Charlie. Looking forward to today's conversation.
Wonderful.
Right. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, good.
Perfect.
Awesome. I should have done that earlier. But I love reading these bios because you have this wealth of experience in the field, all three of you, right? In the field, in universities, in the workplace, and then just this wealth of people knowledge. This is what this is all about. How do we keep our people? So, Carla, in kind of this context of building sustainable workforce, right? How do you envision the role of mentorship in fostering long-term relationships, long-term retention, and professional growth within these industries?
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. This is a great question. So mentorship plays a pivotal role in fostering long-term retention and professional growth within industries. As organizations navigate the technological advancements and evolving sustainability objectives, employees are having to continuously build on their skills and innovate. And mentorship provides a critical avenue to provide guidance, knowledge transfer, and career advice to these employees in dynamic environments. In workplace where collaboration and innovation are so key, employees often encounter a lot of challenges, and mentors can really help them navigate those challenges successfully and maintain that momentum and fostering the innovation. Additional mentors also can offer guidance for career progression and providing some opportunities for career advancement within the organization as well. When mentees are able to have guidance with their career, developing their career path, designing their career paths, they're more likely to find job satisfaction and success in their careers, which actually in turn helps them want to stay within the company as well. So I mean, there's so many great benefits to mentorship, and something that I love about mentorship is it's one of those things that once you do it for somebody, it inspires that somebody or that mentee to go on and mentor others as well. So it really creates that organic flow of mentoring one another within the organization, creating a culture of continuous learning and development.
Yes. And I love that about just kind of talking to you and kind of that experience of wanting to, I want to get to know you. I want to mentor you. I want to make sure that we're, talking to our employees in a way that they are going to, and creating that space, I guess, that safe space where they're going to actually tell us. And so we can actually help them. My next question for Dr. Saoirse here, could you elaborate on sustainable opportunities presently in STEAM, y'all know I like STEAM because I love the arts, the programs that, can contribute to a more sustainable workforce?
Yeah, so to me, I look at it as sort of a three-part ecosystem, right? There's the K to 12 itself. And most of the time, it shows that in sort of late elementary, middle school, you lose students out of the STEM field. But there's a lot of push in high school as well. So your best intervention is teachers, especially in science teachers, to get women and young girls into this, because that's the other part of sort of this leaky STEM pipeline. So any opportunity to get teachers sort of this externship, where they themselves do internships and get practical experience on latest technologies, what's happening, they are the advocates that go back to this workforce. Then sort of the second part of this part is students, they're graduating, say, associate's degrees or college. How do they get industrial experience? Because not everyone has the opportunity to get internships, but where can they get industry-ready skills so they not only become employable, but also when they ramp into their new job, they are successful. What Carla said about mentorship is so critically impactful because that's what provides a sort of a roadmap for success. And then you have the employees who already transition into workforce, and how do you retain them? How do you engage them? This is, I think, the only time in human history where you have so many generations of workforce, from people who are sort of in the baby boomer to Gen Z, And keeping them all engaged requires sort of different skills. And technology is changing. We see AI everywhere around us. And as people adopt different technologies, how do you keep them engaged? How do you give them the projects? How do you get them to collaborate? And people want to feel, at least my own experience, and I know from people working with a lot of employees, leading teams, is we want to feel pride in our work. We want to feel that we are having impact. And I think also nowadays we want to see that the products we're building are sustainable and that they're driving that sustainable economy as well. So once you give that picture to somebody, like I worked in semiconductors, so if I can tell somebody you're building a diabetes patch that your grandmother is using, or you're building a part that it goes into the braking system of the car that your daughter is driving, that's an impact. That makes me feel pride that I can communicate this sort of nebulous product to the people around me, but also the impact that I'm having as a person driving this economy as well.
I love that. And one thing that you said about like giving our teachers access to the information, even inspiration and just education, that I haven't really thought of that before in this way, in this context of just, we are always focused on that child, that next generation. How do we get them in our industry, right? But what about, talking to the teachers that are educating them? Oh, that was a kind of epiphany here for me today. The other thing I did want to ask you just about industries. What are some really good industries as far as growth for STEM and STEAM?
I'm coming from the semiconductor industry, and I tell you, this place is booming. You see the CHIPS Act, you see the reasons. I mean, it's driven largely by geopolitical factors as well as innovation. All the AI chips are built on semiconductor chips. So without this industry, you wouldn't have the new technology or electric vehicles, everything that's going on. And that is one industry. Anything that's high-tech manufacturing is something that I am passionately want to make people aware of, because there's a lot of emphasis on the software industry, but it's about, could be aerospace, could be sort of this new materials. I think the lady before us spoke, right? There's a lot of investment in new materials because to build a sustainable environment, we need to be investing in recycling, wind power, solar power, so energy sector. So anything that requires building using software skills, different skill set is very critical. There's a lot of focus. This is from personal experience and also from as a mom and as sort of a engineer and a techie, is I see a huge push where students tend to be going towards computer science. And it's very important to do that. But I think we also forget that we require electrical, mechanical, sort of these hardware, material science, chemical engineers to drive this economy. And students may not be aware because they don't see a lot of it, in the news. They only see AI and ML and data and stuff. So the more we talk about it, and that might be something that suits a lot more students. So how do we get them passionate about it and show them the opportunities? And that's where all of us as sort of industry experts become very critical to making this a visible space for them.
I love that so much. I'm just thinking about the education, which does bring me to Cameron. Cameron, educating others on sustainable products is kind of what you have to do now in this job, but it requires kind of this blend of technical knowledge, growth mindset. What strategies have you found effective in conveying this information, and what advice would you give to individuals seeking to kind of bridge this gap between technical knowledge and expertise, traditional even, and then this sustainability awareness? How are we going to bridge that?
Great question. So I'll reiterate something that Dr. Kuchimanchi was saying, which is you need to meet people where they're at, right? It really just boils down to knowing who your audience is and making sure that you're communicating with them in their language. So what do they care about and what's in it for them? As much as I'd like it, not everybody is just excited about sustainability for sustainability's sake. But you can frame those benefits of sustainability or sustainable technology in a number of ways. So if I'm talking to an engineer, where I can talk about control algorithms, I can talk about, extending lifetime of pieces of equipment. If I'm talking to a sustainability manager, then we can talk about, tons of CO2 equivalent emissions and, municipal emission avoidant ordinances like BERTO or Local Law 97 in New York. measurement verification, but a lot of the people I talk to are asset managers or property managers. They're at the end of the day, like financial in their role. So they need to understand enough that they can pitch it to other folks and right that they feel confident that they know what they're buying. But at the end of the day, what they need to know is this a good business decision for them? And then the hard part there is figuring out the best way to communicate a complicated technology in a simple way. It's so much harder than talking shop with another engineer. So just like anything, I want to be good at it. I got to practice it, right? Write down your audience, like create a person, like a different personas. What do they care about? What do you want to make sure you want to talk to them about? And then practice it, right? Metaphors are great. I have a car metaphor that I think is okay for what I do. So yeah, know who you're talking to, know kind of what you think they know, and prepare for that conversation.
Yeah, and I think yeah, and I was going to say, just because, that's one of your strengths, kind of breaking down that information, right? Like there are some technical things that we really have to understand, but how do we, and this reminds me of marketing too, right? And maybe that's the background that you have is, we need to know just enough, I always say, right? Know just enough to be dangerous, but you do have to understand it in order to communicate it. And that's what we're trying to do. Michelle's presentation on sustainability was so great of like, here is this diagram, right? I'm gonna put it even in a graphic for you to kind of simplify it down for you on the sustainable level. But I'm curious, from each of y'all, kind of the same question about that personal passion and drive for sustainability. What and how, do you believe that passion inspires and influences others? Like if you didn't, can you do this job, right? Of talking up sustainability if you weren't passionate about it? Yeah, I think there's the kind of two answers there, but I'd love to hear from your perspective, just that personal drive behind what you're doing today. Carla, I'll start with you. I still have you on. Yeah, I still have you on mute, but there she goes.
All right, I'm good. Yeah, definitely. So passion is absolutely a key ingredient for me in doing what I do. I feel that there is a lot of impact that a company can accomplish through their people, because it's all about people, processes, materials. So working with individuals, with employees, and helping set them up for success, developing them, and making sure that they see a future within the company and they advance. That all to me means that we're going to increase that talent retention, including the culture of learning and development. And in turn, that would support organizations in achieving these sustainability goals.
Yeah, one more question, Carla, for you.
Yeah.
Just as you're educating people, do you see any challenges in this, in kind of that space of getting the engineering world, for example, on board with sustainability? Have you seen anything come up? I know I didn't prep you for that question, but I was curious.
No, nothing specific in terms of the topic of sustainability. It's typically more the resistance that I see more so is in regards to maybe investing in their engineers in the early stage of their development.
Got it.
Yeah.
Doctor, your turn.
So for me, so I grew up in a very academic background. So I believe, a lot of access to opportunities, or at least the tangible way of figuring out what existed out there. And what drives me, I hosted a podcast for about 2.5 years on enabling women into leadership roles. And what drives me there is about bringing underrepresented and underserved communities to access STEM jobs. Because STEM is a place where technology is changing, where you can have a huge impact. It also, let's be frank, it pays a lot of money compared to a lot of other jobs. And there's a lot of them out there, and how can people access them and uplift not themselves, but their communities, and really make a change? So that is part of what drives me in workforce development. So, and my interest is really bridging this gap between getting college or university ready and getting industry ready. So that's where I work, is between creating these experiences and these courses to bridge that gap between education and industry readiness, and how do you get people into that? And from a workforce standpoint, it's about keeping people engaged, sort of having that pride, going back to what I said. If you can connect the human emotion of the product or the end system that you're building, then I feel impact, I feel recognized, and also of recognizing people's efforts, because we come to work, we spend a lot of time at work, probably more than anywhere else. So it needs to be something where we feel impact and value as we work through it.
Absolutely. Last but not least, Cameron.
Sure. I think passion is really important for whatever you're doing, just to, one, enjoy it. So like I'm an engineer at the end of the day. I love solving problems. I love those problems to be interesting, and I want the solutions to make a difference. So whereas before, right, I worked in the water space, which was more about like delivering clean water and water safety. And now I'm here in sustainability. I really like what I do, and I think that it's important that other people see that. Mostly because at the end of the day, even businesses are made out of people. Businesses do businesses with other businesses, but it's really just people talking to other people. And they'll see if you're excited about something, and that kind of excitement is infectious. So if you want them to get excited about what you have to offer, you got to start by being excited yourself.
Okay, so I have another question for all of you. How do we find those people, right? How do we retain, how do we find them that you want to be on your team, right? That you want to bring into, your companies? Like how would you pick and say from this list, this is the person to join my team? Do you have any tips for people that are looking for that? Okay, go ahead, doctor.
Oftentimes when I've done my own teams, either at work or outside, it's about being flexible about it, because oftentimes you go in with, this is the person I want. But when you start getting a list of people, it's to be able to adapt that team to what already exists and how people might want to move. It's an opportunity if you already say work in a corporate and you have a team of say 10 people and you're hiring a new person. It's an opportunity to even reorganize your current team and see where they want to go, because people want to grow. So you have to give them the roadmap of where do they want to go and what opportunities and what projects, maybe outside your own group, outside your ecosystem, that they can continue to develop, because you're still working for the organization, having impact. And then how do you fit this person in? And they may not have the skills that you originally thought you needed, but it might be a good way to flex and see what do they bring. And it's not just technical, it's also the people part of it. Is this group going to gel in a way? And I find that when I do interviews, I always did not just one-on-one, I had panels of people from the group and panels of stakeholders that were outside the group, because it was important to have both of their inputs in seeing how this, as we built a team together, how this would come together, and finding the right folks and asking people for recommendations outside your ecosystem.
I love that. And I think that really is important to keep in mind for our employers, for one, when we are looking out there for, sending out the jobs, listings or whatever. Where are we putting those? Are we putting those in a diverse, something different than we used to have always doing? Try something new to get different talent. I think it's really important too. Carla, looks like you were wanting to say something.
Yeah. So I guess for me, the key factor, the one to even start out with, is communications. Because I feel like there are problems, there are going to be roadblocks, there are going to be personalities differences to have to interrelate with. And as long as there is effective communications and the desire to communicate timely, we can solve any problems. We can get ahead of any big problems and mitigate the impact of these problems. So that's one of the main things that I like to look for is, I'm not expecting you to be perfect, but I am expecting us to be able to communicate and get ahead of these problems.
Absolutely.
The other thing I would say is, I think it's important to decide if you are looking for somebody that is an expert that you want just to come on board and to complement the skills that you may not have or the knowledge that you may not have, or if you're looking for somebody to train that you don't mind, that has potential, that you don't mind developing and spending the time to train them and to prepare them to be successful at performing in your team.
Well, that was good. I'm thinking of all the people out here who hire somebody and don't have time to train them. And it's such a downfall, right? I feel like leaders all the time that I talk to feel like they didn't get that one-on-one time that they needed to be successful in their careers. But sometimes you just need that person that already knows it, that you don't have time to train. That's a really great feedback. I love that. Cameron, you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure. Yeah, I guess mostly just reiterating the other two excellent points that have already been made. But I do think that there's a tendency, because you have access to so much of the workforce now, right? You feel like you can get on LinkedIn and you can find the exact right person. You build a model in your head of exactly what they're going to look like, and it can blind you to the fact that there are other people out there who will do a really great job. And might need a little bit of training if you have time to do that. But yeah, just to be open to finding someone who's going to be passionate about what they do. Because I've also made the mistake of finding someone who has all of the right technical skills, but was looking for something a little bit different, and we ended up bringing them on, and then they left quickly, right? And then that was, we weren't serving them. We weren't doing them a favor. We weren't doing us a favor by, bringing on someone who was well qualified, but maybe, was looking for something a little bit different in their career, and we're, trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Yeah, find someone who's going to like what you're asking them to do.
Yeah, the communication. Go ahead, doctor.
I wanted to add something, as you both talked about finding the right person. Because there's a lot of different people and diverse in the panel when you're looking at it. Generally, research shows that women don't tend to apply to jobs. If there are 5 requirements in a job, we tend to check all the boxes and then we apply for a job. That's what research shows. I'm not saying everyone in the group or listening on the chat may be following that. Well, also it shows that men might have one and then apply for the job. And so we should be very careful not to limit ourselves to applying for a role just because we feel we don't meet the requirements. Because the requirements are a wish list from a manager. They're not always what they get and what they want. It's my ideal candidate. I may not even need all of it. And sometimes often you never use those. So don't let that distract you. And apply for the job, and you may get it, or you may get feedback that improves and gives you chances. It also opens the door for the manager to know you actually want to get promoted, because oftentimes they have no idea if you don't communicate. So going to Carlos, the communication is very important. And when you put your name in the hat, it's about getting think about it. If I get that first role, then I'm eligible for the next role. So the promotion rate goes faster. So if I stop myself from going on the first step of the ladder, it just stops me from climbing. So I know we have, we might think we're not ready, but don't let it be self-imposed. Try for it if it's something you want, or at least have a conversation with the hiring manager to see what the skill gap is and what you need to do. And you may find that that's the job you really want, or you may discover that's a job you really don't want. Either way, information is key. So keep trying. That's all I want to leave people with, the fact that don't stop yourself from doing something.
I love that. And I'll just ask Carla and Cameron if y'all will just give a little piece of advice for kind of a professional coming into the industry.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Sarisha was saying. That's absolutely true. Don't hold back from applying to the job that you think you're going to be you're passionate about, and that you have what it takes to be successful at it. And also think of the fact that if there's a lot of potential in you, there's room to develop it within the work that you're doing. So don't feel like you have to, like Sarisha was saying, check all the boxes. Also, in my experience, I have actually seen in program management, I've seen managers have a candidate that they're very interested in, but who doesn't check the boxes on the actual job rec out there, because the job rec is not made necessarily by him. It needs to meet a certain level of requirements, but the manager was highly interested in the candidate. So if they can reach out and contact the hiring manager directly and establish that relationship and show the passion and the interest they have in the position, it can go a long way as well.
That's great advice.
Yeah, so I will say, Charlie and I have done a lot of work on strengths. So play to your strengths, but get uncomfortable with the ways that you use them. I think it's easier to do the things that you're good at, to like use your strengths, than it is to try to, do a thing that you're not naturally good at, which I know can come off a little wrong. But play to your strengths, but be willing to see how you can use them in ways that you're not using them now, and take a risk that way, right? Just because you're not an engineer does not mean that you can't come into sustainability and learn the technical things. If you're a strong communicator, right? That's going to be really valuable in just about any position. So be willing to get a little uncomfortable.
I love that. And I do agree, right? The strengths, playing your strengths. we're all passionate about something. I love how Saoirse's love for empowering women keeps coming up in her conversation. You can't get away from it. She just loves to develop women leaders. It's just shown, right? And so I think that when we do communicate with people, and we know what our passion is, it's going to, you're going to see that comes up over and over. And when we are looking for how do we show up as our best selves in work, that has to be there, right? We have to have fun at what we're doing, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it at the level of efficiency and productivity that our companies actually want. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have to do something you don't want to do, but it absolutely means, hey, I better be at least working 90% of the time on things that I actually enjoy. And so, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I love that. And really, I was looking at different strengths or values. Sometimes our values can hold us back, like being nice all the time. Sometimes we need to be like, nope, that's actually not okay. And so there's all kinds of things about values and strengths. So thanks for bringing that up, Cameron. I'd love to talk to anybody about that. But we're out of time and we are going to take a break. So we are also passionate about self-care and making sure that we eat, drink water, take a break, take some breaths, and we'll be back. I think it's a 30-minute break. Let me double check. Yep. We'll be back at 12. We just leave it up. It's 12 Central Time. We just leave this up and take a break. So panelists, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom today. I enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you the next time.
Thanks all.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
See you then.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Sustainability Summit. I am Charlie K. Matthews. I'm the CEO and founder of Empowering Pumps and Equipment. And I'm really excited about this. I've had a great morning of sustainability already, but I'm excited about our next guest, sustainability and the environment with H.J. Duess. H.J. is a friend of mine. He has been a mentor and a role model for so many, but he's going to take us on a journey to explore a new way of our role in when it comes to taking care of the planet. And so I'm excited about this. I know I've heard a little bit about it just in conversation, so I'm excited. But HJ is the business development. I'm sorry, I tongue-tied because I was eating, I guess. But HJ is the business development manager for ABB in the HVAC hydronics division. Their ABB Drives business. And he has spent more than 30 years at ABB. He has contributed to the growth of the business in so many different areas, from the factory floor to logistics to channel management, sales, development, marketing. There's a trend through our speakers here of all these different opportunities and talents, even in the same company. And so you definitely have that, HJ. But today, HJ is the business development manager for HVAC and hydronics for the ABB Drives business. So for that, I'm excited, but I'm also I know your heart and you are really passionate about sustainability. So I'm going to turn it over to you now. Look forward to your presentation.
All right. I am going to share my screen and go into presentation mode here. Give me a minute.
Sounds good.
Let's go. Perfect.
All right. Welcome, HJ. I'm turning it over to you.
All right, very good. So you guys saw the opening slide, but yeah, I would really like to thank Charlie and Becca and the Empowering team for this opportunity to take a new look, at what our role is in energy efficiency, the importance of energy efficiency, and the challenge that I have for us is to challenge the existing paradigm, really think about what that means, right? Charlie gave a pretty good introduction for me. So people often ask, so I am not an engineer, right? A lot of the people in our industry are engineers, and people in roles similar to mine are engineers. I've got a double major in communications and organizational leadership. 4 years in the Navy. I've served on many different associations, including I had a stint on the board of directors for the Hydraulic Institute. I was on the Midwest Energy Research Consortium and the Water Council, NEMA, many different organizations that were all focused in different ways on energy efficiency and sustainability and the water energy nexus. So definitely a passion of mine, a place I've spent a lot of time in my career. And with that, just to set the table for our discussion, I'd like to start with a few definitions to make sure everybody is on the same page. First, let's take a look at the word paradigm. A paradigm is a mental framework that's so ingrained in our being that it shapes the way we think about things and the way we act, the things that we do. Our everyday actions are based on paradigms that shape our lives. As an example, at one time, our paradigm was that the Earth was at the center of the universe. Our sun traveled around us daily. Everything, all thoughts, beliefs, actions were based on that reality. People actually believed at one time in a sun god who made daily trips across the sky and that the Earth was flat. But then that changed pretty significantly. In 1515, Copernicus hypothesized that our spherical planet, like the other planets, orbited the sun, and that every 24 hours we rotated on an axis, causing the night and the day. This new way of thinking contradicted a 1,000-year-old Earth as the center of the universe Aristotelian theory, and it changed everything. Just imagine the paradigm shift that took place when we went from thinking that we're the center of the Earth universe to accepting the fact that we are not. This shaped the way that we lived our lives. Secondly, I'd like to define what it means to inherit something. To inherit something means that you received it, it's yours. You can do with it what you want. You have the title. Pretty simply, you own it. And next, I'd like to define what it means to borrow something. To borrow means that you received with the implied intentions to return it. It actually means that the object is not yours. It belongs to someone else who most likely expects to get it back in the same or better condition than when you borrowed it from them or when they lent it to you. You do not own it. So I'd like you to take some time and think for a minute about some time that maybe you lent something to somebody, something important. Did you get it back in the same condition that it was when you lent it? Have you ever lent something and gotten it back in a worse condition? Maybe something like a utensil up in the left-hand corner, right? Before you could use it, you had to clean it or re-season it. Maybe it was something that was special, a favorite book or a piece of clothing. Maybe it came back to you and it was completely unusable, either broken or missing pieces. Maybe it was something that was really, really valuable to you, right? Something that couldn't be replaced without considerable expense. Needless to say, I'd like to ask the question, when you got it back, how did it make you feel? Were you upset, disappointed, maybe even a little bit angry? So I'd like to take you on a little journey with me and share a story with you. In 1994, 30 years ago today, my current fiance, my fiance at the time, fiance for almost 30 years, Trish, and I went on our first official away from home date. We went to a Packer game, and it was a birthday gift for me. It was our first night at a hotel, we'll say. And we wanted to take in the whole thing. So we got to Green Bay the day beforehand. We got up early in the morning. It was super cold. We headed out first thing in the morning, and we went to tailgate like we do in Green Bay at Lambeau, right? We grilled out for the day, had a few drinks, had a really, really great time. Maybe even a few too many drinks, but at the end of the day, hey, we were at Lambeau. We got to our seats. They were nosebleeds, right? Packer seats are not cheap. Every game has been sold out for years and years and years. But we got to our seats, and we're there at the frozen tundra, pretty excited about it. And the cool thing was that we had borrowed Trish's dad's binoculars for the game. So even though we had seats that were way up there, we're going to get a great view of the game. It turned out to be a really great day. The Packers crushed our division rivals, the Bears, 40-3. Couldn't have been better. We celebrated with the fans throughout the day. And even on the way home, we left the stadium. We were going out to the Titletown drinking experience that night, I would say, to celebrate with fans about the win. And at some point along the way, we had realized that we had forgot the binoculars. We left them in the seats in the stadium, and we had lost them. Well, that was all right. We decided we were going to get a really, really good pair of binoculars and replace them. So we did. We went and we bought a super expensive pair, went and told her dad, and I'll never forget the awful look on his face when he looked at us and he said, "Thanks, but those were my dad's." And so when you think about that, right, we didn't know the value of those binoculars to him. Ultimately speaking, you don't know the value of something unless you can hear from the person specifically themselves what it really means. It was a learning experience that stayed with me. Still here 30 years later, I still think about that. So I'd ask, what would that mean if we applied this thinking to our planet, to Earth? What if we changed the paradigm completely? What if we changed the way of thinking that shapes our actions? What if we did not inherit the Earth from those before us? What if, in fact, we borrowed it from the future, from those yet to come? Our children and theirs, our grandkids, great-grandkids, etc. Think about what that would mean. What if the planet Earth, our planet, was not really ours, but instead belonged to somebody else? And what if we had to give it back to them with interest? So I'd like to ask if anybody has heard of the pale blue dot, right? I'll put this in perspective. Voyager 1 launched in 1977 with a planned mission to reach Saturn to send scientific images back to NASA. Voyager 1 achieved that objective and served well beyond it, making it all the way to the outskirts of our solar system. During Voyager's extended journey for nearly 10 years, astronomer Carl Sagan had the idea to turn her cameras around and look back at the Earth. And in 1990, it finally happened, capturing an image of our planet from nearly 4 billion miles away. The image itself actually has no scientific value, but it was Sagan who saw the intrinsic value in the image. He captured that value in his book, The Pale Blue Dot. And here I'm going to highlight, if I can here, specifically the dot. The dot is right here in this ray of the sun. Sagan wrote in his book, look at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. And I'll paraphrase, if that dot is all that we have ever been, the only world known to harbor life, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish that pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. So I'll ask the question, how are we doing? Let's take a quick look at what we do with that dot. And I'll pause here for you to take in some of these images. Ultimately speaking, I would suggest that we have real opportunities to maybe improve on the way that we're protecting that dot. Yet as a people, we continue to grow. By 2050, we expect to be over 10 billion inhabitants on Earth. And despite this growth, many countries around the world are focused on getting to net zero, which net zero means effectively cutting the carbon emissions to a small enough amount that can be absorbed and durably stored by nature. Does it feel a little bit overwhelming? We simply cannot remain on the same path. We have to figure out how to do more with less. So as individuals, you can imagine things that are pretty simple to do in our own lives, right? Some obvious things are reuse, recycle, use products that can be recovered, limit the use of items that are difficult to recover, such as styrofoam or things that are coated with PFAS chemicals. We can limit waste. We can turn off things when they're not in use. Examples might include lights, fans, air conditioners, TVs, and such. We can turn off the water when we brush our teeth, right? Simple things. We can limit excessive runoff when we're doing things like watering our lawn or washing our car. We can dispose of food stuff in the disposal, which is a natural waste stream, instead of throwing it in the garbage can where it might end up in a landfill. Wherever possible, we can use renewable energy sources, and we might even install smart devices that can control temperature, lighting, water flow in our homes that are set differently when we're away versus when we're at home or in the office. But some things might not be that obvious, right? Many of the things that are not obvious are more in our business and leisure lives, in the industrial space or in commercial buildings. Let's focus on reducing emissions as a part of our goal to make and take better steps for our future. So one of the most impactful greenhouse gases is carbon dioxide. I think most of you know, but carbon dioxide is the gas that comes from your car, gases that come from fossil fuel production into gasoline and others, and a harmful byproduct of heavy industry. There's 3 primary ways to reduce carbon dioxide. The first is decarbonization, which is using renewable energy instead of fossil fuels. The second is efficiency, which is using less energy for providing the same number of products and services. And the third is sufficiency, rethinking the way we produce and consume to both use and waste less. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus on the importance of efficiency in achieving the goal of getting to net zero. So efficiency, the way that we use energy, it's simply the largest single contributor to emissions reductions available to achieve net zero. Being more efficient with the energy we use will have a bigger impact than switching to renewable energies, a bigger impact than fuel switching, which is switching from carbon-intense fuels to low or zero carbon alternatives, a bigger effect than ramping up our use of nuclear power, and so on. In fact, doubling our rate of efficiency and energy intensity, the amount of energy used to produce a given level of output or activity, doubling our rate of efficiency over the next decade could save 95 exajoules of energy per year, helping us to avoid 5 gigatons of CO2 per year. So for reference, I thought I'd include 2 things. First, an exajoule is a joule times 10 to the 18th power, for those of you that are engineers out there, right? 10 to the 9th power is a billion. We're talking about a billion billions, right? Or a gigaton. It's the equivalent to the CO2 generated by 211 million gasoline-powered passenger vehicles. We're talking about a lot of CO2, right? This can have a tremendous effect on our ability to achieve net zero, in addition to many other additional measurable effects. The amount of energy that we could save, it's staggering. I'd like to share with you a short video to introduce something we call the energy efficiency movement.
What can 1 drop of water do? What about 2 or 3? The smallest of actions can accomplish much if done consistently and with purpose. Sometimes we think we're too small to do anything, to mean anything. What will happen if we continue down the same path, doing the same things we've always done? Ignoring the problem won't solve it. The energy efficiency movement brings together like-minded stakeholders working toward a more energy-efficient world. Through knowledge sharing, adoption of energy-efficient technologies, smarter investments, and better regulations and incentives, decarbonization can be achieved faster, enabling a brighter future for all. It takes just 1 step to change direction, to put us on a better path with a vision for the future. What can 1 person do? 1 company, 2 companies. Understanding the reality of a situation is the first step towards solving it. If you haven't joined us yet or require information, visit energyefficiencymovement.com.
So let's focus on electrical motors. which is the workhorse of our society. The International Energy Agency has estimated that 70% of the electricity consumed by global industry is used by electrical motor systems. That's 45% of the total electricity in the world today. In a recent study, they estimated that electrical motors will double by 2040 to over 600 million units. Urbanization and rising living standards will continue to increase the demand for energy. The global economy is expected to double over that same period. Critical processes can't stop. They must continue, but they need to be more energy efficient to reduce our CO2 emissions. With high efficiency motors and drive systems that are available today, we can cut electricity consumption by 10%, despite the increase in motor use. So the question is, who can drive energy efficiency performance? The answer is effectively that we all can. Regardless of the organization that you work for, there are opportunities to join the energy efficiency movement to contribute. Across the board, members can add value, whether they're from academia, the private sector, the public sector, government, or investment community. All of our actions can make a difference to drive a more efficient future. Even as individuals, we can manage our own activities, and we can advocate for energy efficiency and for the movement. First of all, kudos to Charlie and the Empowering team for allowing me to present on this platform. And I would also say kudos to those of you that are willing in the audience to take action or to think about what it might mean to join the movement. Becoming a mover effectively is our term. It's not difficult. It's about commitment. There's 5 simple steps. First, make a commitment to improve energy efficiency in your organization, your work, or your daily activity. Second, be willing to share that commitment publicly via the Energy Efficiency Movement portal. Third, take action. Act on the items that you identified to become more efficient and report on your progress publicly and share your experience. Help us to activate the movement and advocate for additional movers. The business case is clear. Making a commitment to become more efficient both saves money and reduces our carbon footprint. It's true, we simply can do more with less with the technology we have available today. The energy efficiency movement identifies 10 key actions we can take right now. We do not have to wait for some big technological advancements. We have the technology today to make significant change. We believe we have the technology to save 4 gigatons of CO2 annually by 2030, an 11% reduction of the total carbon emissions, all while saving industry over $400 billion by not spending on energy that's not needed. Working to become more efficient pays off for organizations. It pays off for all. Why wait? There's several benefits to making a commitment and joining the movement. By joining the movement, your organization becomes a member of a global community of stakeholders who also have committed to positive change in their energy efficiency journey. Together, these organizations share commitments, solutions, and results, driving innovation toward a more efficient future. Our mission since its inception in 2021 has been consistent. We promote energy efficient solutions and technologies and focus on 3 things: saving energy, reducing costs, and reducing CO2 emissions. We do this through education and through scaling innovations and best practices based on a first fuel principle, where energy efficiency is the biggest opportunity to achieve our objectives. So where do we stand today? We actually, in 2023, we crossed almost 450 movers globally. We include companies like GEA, T-Mobile, Microsoft, Honeywell, Alfa Laval, Sulzer, Danfoss, and Flowserve. You may recognize, if you know the organization I work for, ABB, that several of those are our competitors. The movement's not isolated to ABB. Effectively, it's available for all, and we've had competitors who have agreed to join the movement. In average, we have about 20 companies that join the movement a month. This has really been a really, really high level introduction to what's possible and to what the movement is. To learn more, I encourage you to engage with the energy efficiency movement and consider whether or not your organization should become a mover. And as a minimum, I challenge you to check us out and see how you can engage in what it may mean to you. And in closing, I'd like to ask, do you remember that dot? If that's not ours, if that's something that we borrowed from the future generations, if we change the paradigm completely, and if that dot is all we have, then we must ask ourselves, what commitment can we make? I've included here a few references that I used in preparing the presentation outside of the energy efficiency movement. And again, I'd like to take a minute to share my contact information, and I encourage you to connect with me to learn more about the movement and more about what you can do, and maybe more about the impact of electric motors and drives. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. And I'd like to ask Charlie, do we have time for any questions?
We do have some time. Thank you so much, HJ. Y'all put your questions in the chat or the Q&A, or you can, send me a message, want to jump on. HJ, I'm inspired, right? I'd heard just a taste of your presentation when we talked, and you did a beautiful job. Absolutely makes you think differently, which is, I know, what you're wanting for people. And, I think that the movement, the energy efficiency movement, and being a part of that, and being an advocate and a person willing to share, my company's willing to share on energy efficiency, it's because it's so important. And we've heard today from so many different people. Actually, people are talking about it online in different areas. I do want to share a link to an article from Bluefield Research that was going around just as we were talking about water and energy together. So were they. I don't have a question coming up for you right now, but that means you did a great job. And y'all, please reach out to him, share this. We definitely have it on demand, but I also think we should look at just sharing this, HJ. It's so powerful. Thank you for your time. And like you said, get in touch with HJ. He's done a lot for our industry as a whole. Looking forward to seeing what you do next. I know for a fact in November at Epic, but then depending on what you do, we'll be watching, because that is a very powerful message. So thank you, HJ.
I appreciate it so much, Charlie. I agree. When you think about the fact that if the earth is ours and we can do with it what we want, that's one thing, right? And then you think about, are we going to make it to 2050? But if you really change that paradigm and think about the fact that it's not ours, right? We effectively owe it to the future to do a better job than what we're doing right now, right? It maybe changes the way we think about things we can do in our own lives and what our organizations can do, right? We continue to add movers because of the fact that people want to make a difference, right? It's really a positive thing. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, HJ. Well, give yourself like a pat on the back, a celebration. Everyone, it's been a great morning already. Now we're into the afternoon. We have some more sessions for us. Just want to touch base here and make sure that Courtney is ready to go. Courtney, will you join me and just check your camera and voice and everything?
Good afternoon, Charlie.
There she is. Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, I am just still kind of in awe, of the panelists that we've had, but I'm super excited to jump in and kind of hear from you. Let's give people just a couple more minutes in case they were coming right on the 12:30 mark, and I'll jump back on right then. Okay, so just hang with us a few more minutes and allow time for others to come in.
Super.
So Courtney, what'd you think of the previous presentation there from HJ?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, how inspiring. And at the same time, I was smiling because, you know, talking about the power of efficiency and where we can make tremendous difference with the technologies we have available to us today is a big part of, you know, where my world lives. And yeah, definitely going to check out the energy efficiency movement and joining the work he does.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that when we have like minds come together, that's the common, right? It's that thread that you're just like, oh, that's so inspiring. I want to do something. And that's what we're most hopeful with sharing this information, is that people hear it and that they want to make a contribution in any of the sustainable ways that you can do that. You know, there are so many opportunities. And so I'm excited to hear from you as well. Grundfos is a great partner of ours, both on empowering pumps and equipment and also empowering women in industry. It's been such a pleasure to work with your team.
That's great. Yes, we're very happy to be partners with you on both of those initiatives.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. So we're going to hear from Courtney, where she's going to talk to us about building a more sustainable industries through, you know, water and energy solutions. And so Courtney Tripp, she is a results-focused strategy, marketing, and communication leader for 18 years, with experience in igniting growth and purpose-driven companies and nonprofits, including 3 years in the water solutions industry. Courtney is passionate about the importance of increasing sustainability and addressing the world's water crisis. We heard about that earlier, that we need it for our energy as well. She believes in the ability of innovations in industry and manufacturing to help lead the way to a better, more resilient future. She holds a master's degree in mass communications and a bachelor in journalism. When not working, she can be found horseback riding, or enjoying the great outdoors, which I am just so impressed with. And so there are so many great things there, Courtney. So I'll just, without further delay, turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Charlie, and thank you for having me. And thank you to HJ for such an inspiring talk, and really, you know, valuing this wonderful planet that we are, you know, privileged to borrow for the time that we are here. I'm going to hit share my screen, and hopefully that went successfully.
Perfectly.
Beautiful. We do live on Teams more than Zoom, so it's always making sure we make that technology switch smoothly. My name is Courtney Tripp, and I am the Senior Manager of Sustainability and Strategy here in the Americas for the Industrial Division for Grundfos. So today, what I want to do is take you through, tell you a little bit about Grundfos and our commitment to sustainability, then take a bit of a step back or zoom out to look at, you know, along the line of some of those things that HJ shared, looking at the state of industry, the state of water and energy use. Take a zoom into one particular solution in the energy efficiency space, and then share with you all one case study. Always like to come with something very concrete in terms of a case that demonstrates what we're talking about today. So a little bit about Grundfos for those who may not be familiar. We're the world's largest pump company, founded in 1945, and our US presence is 50 years, just over 50 years strong now, having celebrated our 50-year anniversary last year. And while we have 20,000 employees worldwide, we also have that very strong footprint here locally, with both manufacturing and production in Fresno, California, and in Houston, Texas, as well as, you know, many of us in offices, including I sit in the Kansas City area, where we have our industrial and domestic buildings divisions kind of housed as far as our US presence. And that's the other thing I'll mention, that you know, we do work across 4 different divisions: domestic and commercial buildings, water utilities, and then where I sit, which is that industrial division. In the industrial division, we reach across an array of light industries, including food and beverage, mobility, pharmaceuticals, electronics, and renewable energies. And while pumps are our business, our purpose is to pioneer solutions to the world's water and climate challenges and improve the quality of life for people. It's just a really small ambition we wake up with each day. But that's to say, sustainability is truly at the heart of everything we do at Grundfos. Not only are we committed to the UN Sustainable Development Goals 6 and 13, clean water and sanitation and climate action, but we have 4 pillars around sustainability that really guide us. Climate action, decarbonizing through the flow of water through energy efficient pump and water movement solutions. Water action, reducing not only our footprint, but helping to reduce, reclaim, and reuse water so that we are able to do more with less. Embedding circular principles into every area of our business. And finally, water access through our partners and NGOs, working to increase the number of people who have clean, safe, sustainable water and sanitation throughout the world, which is just an incredible need. So then in 2022, we took what many of us call our boldest step yet as a company, when we became the first water solutions company with approved net zero targets through the Science Based Targets Initiative. We pledged not only to be net zero by 2050, but set near-term targets to reduce our own operations emissions by 50% by 2030, and to reduce our emissions across the entire value chain by 25%. And the reason I highlight this is because for Grundfos, so much, and for so many companies, so much of the challenge lies in scope 3, indirect emissions. And in particular for a company like Grundfos, that scope 3 emissions, the largest part of that, and the largest part of our emissions overall, are our sold product in use in the market. So when we're talking about sustainability and our sustainability journey, we are not isolated. It's about bringing others along in industry on this sustainability journey with us, empowering those in the market to have smarter, more efficient technology, running the ways that they move and treat water so that we all can work towards a net zero future together. So industry uses a lot of energy and has a significant environmental footprint. Not only are we looking at 38% of the global total energy use coming from the industrial sector, but we're looking at incredible growth continuing to happen in this sector as our technology advances, as our needs for manufacturing expand, and as our population grows. In particular, if we look at the food and beverage industry, energy consumption in the food and beverage industry has risen by 40% in the past 10 years. And, I had to smile because as HJ was referencing this, our global population is growing. We're expected to reach, 9.7 or even potentially past 10 billion by 2050. So whether we're talking about the demand for food and beverage or the demand for pharmaceuticals, mobility, any of these products, this demand is increasing rather than decreasing. So the challenge ahead of us isn't to do more, isn't to do the same with less, it's to do actually more with less. And I would have thought we were almost coordinating between the two presentations because this whole idea of the impact of energy efficiency has an incredible role to play as we're on this journey. And then there's the other half of the equation, the water. In industrialized nations like the US, industries consume more than half of the water available for human use. And we look at, again, that growth in demand, that growth in population, we see that in 20 years, the demand for water will be 40% higher than it is today. And in some of our most rapidly developing countries around the world, that demand is going to grow even more. And already, whether we're looking at the challenges with drought or the challenges we're seeing with overpumped aquifers, this water supply is something precious and limited. So in water treatment examples, there's water reuse up to 80%, where water can be used incredibly efficiently using smart, intelligent pumping solution. Meaning the efficiency of water in industry is tied to the green transition and the potential for net zero. I truly believe that we cannot look at a net zero future without also looking to and thinking about a water secure future. And that's why I want to kind of pause and really highlight, something that's so familiar to many of us on the call today, which is the water energy nexus. Water is used so often to produce energy. And as Naomi highlighted this morning, green energies, hydrogen, water is essential to those production. And then also when we look at that extraction, treatment, and distribution and use of water, water demands energy. Water demands pumping, treatment, and all of these processes that consume energy in order to move and use that water. So again, a few statistics to really underline and highlight some of these areas where water and energy are interdependent and where water scarcity and pressure is increasing. By 2025, just what feels like a heartbeat away, water scarcity is predicted to affect 66% of the global population. Now, that's not to say that we won't be able to turn on our taps and still get clean, safe drinking water each day. But when we look at places that already are experiencing limits on how much water they can use, the hours of the day they can use certain appliances, that water scarcity and that pressure is going to continue to grow unless we start to intervene and use our water smarter, more efficiently, and look at those circular ways to reuse and reclaim our water. 90% of global power generation is water intensive. So there we have that whole water for power, especially when we look at this green energy transition, where our demand for water will continue to increase. Specifically in the water sector, we have a tremendous opportunity to reduce global carbon emissions. And we look at industrial water, we are only reusing a fraction of the potential that we have to reuse and build in circular principles into the way we use our water. So again, flipping back to that energy side of the equation, this coming from the UN Environment Program, where they looked at where we must cut 30 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And they looked at what solutions, what sectors is it going to demand to cut and get us to this place? And I included the link at the bottom of the slide. They have an outstanding interactive infographic and series of articles on that site to help you understand what these solutions could be. And in particular, although the way industry is defined specifically here, industry looks like a relatively small piece of the pie. When you then start looking at energy production and distribution, agriculture, food and waste, food and beverage is a big part of what we consider as part of the industry bailiwick, and even transportation, whether we're talking about, EVs and smarter transportation, the production of those EVs or the batteries required to run them, these all then feed into that efficiency and water use in industry. So here's some good news. The good news is that increasingly companies are taking action more and more. I haven't yet updated this slide again. I think it's going to be a quarterly exercise rather than a monthly one. But the great news is that it is demanding me to update it on a regular basis, where we now have over 7,000 companies taking action in one form or another through the Science Based Targets Initiative. Currently, this represents 42% of S&P 500 companies and 34% of the global economy by market capitalization is represented by the companies taking action through the Science Based Targets initiative. Of those, 2,796 have net zero commitments in place, and this too will continue to grow. And while this represents a significant portion of companies, there are also companies that are taking action and have net zero commitments that have perhaps done it through a different mechanism or a different organization. But I think this is very, for me, heartening to see how many companies are taking and making those commitments to help us maintain the commitment from the Paris Climate Agreement to keep global warming below that 1.5 degrees Celsius. So I like to say that there's a lot of untapped potential that exists in pumping applications. Especially my friends in the sustainability space that don't work in the water sector or with pumps every day. I say, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people think about LEDs and energy efficiency lighting, but how many of you, when you were talking about increasing the efficiency and the sustainability of your space, said, quick, let's go to the pump room. Let's go to the basement. Let's go look at this mechanical space that probably hasn't been thought about unless there was a breakdown or a problem for potentially a very long time. And yet pumps account for 25% of all electricity consumed by industrial electric motors. That's a huge potential impact. And oftentimes what we find when going out into industry is we may have systems that have been in place, whether for a long time or a shorter period of time, that haven't been updated to the latest technology, that haven't been updated to the most efficient motors on the market. And so that's where, from a Grundfos perspective, I want to highlight just kind of one way we're approaching it with a singular solution, and then zoom out to this case study to show you the level of impact that pumps and water movement technology can have. So yes, you have a pump, but that pump really gets an upgrade or gets moved to that next level when you're looking at how can we pair that pump with variable speed, variable frequency drives, variable speed technology. One of the things highlighted in the last session when you looked at that list of actions around energy efficiency. But then on top of that variable speed technology, we also have an integrated PID controller. We've also included a IE5 permanent magnet motor. Permanent magnet motors are starting to sound more and more familiar to people because this is a technology that you find in electric vehicles. When looking to build a light, efficient motor, permanent magnet motor technology is one of those ways that we're able to do it. And then on top of that, there's even more technology that can be built on top. Monitoring technology, IoT solutions. So then you're building in both intelligence and efficiency to the way that you're dealing with water. Whether it's anything from pressure boosting to chilled water, boiler feed, or washdown applications. How we deal with and the amount of energy we're putting into using that water for the purpose for which we need it in industry can make that incredible impact. So when we look at this technology in specific, it's able to adapt to the actual demand, meeting energy challenges, meeting adaptation challenges, so that instead of running at full speed all the time, always on, we're building in this lower consumption, this adaptation to factory demands, and ultimately reducing emissions without having to compromise reliability or anything else. That's one of the great things about working in the space where I do, whether we're looking at more efficient, smarter water technologies for people's homes or in industry. This is one of those places we're not asking someone to compromise. We're not saying you can't have this thing or this piece of technology that you've grown to use. What we're able to say is we're going to reduce emissions and make your processes easier, smarter, able to adapt as your needs change. So to highlight, again, what kind of energy consumption gains can technology like this, technology that, Grundfos is just one of many companies to offer this type of technology in the space. When you look at taking a fixed speed motor, just a pump and a fixed speed motor, and bringing in a regular asynchronous motor, but with a variable speed drive, there you already see 28% energy savings on average. Then we look further at this, like I said, IE5 is the international rating currently achieved by the motors on these MLE motors on our pumps. It's 2 levels above NEMA Premium. NEMA hasn't quite caught up yet, but building in that level, really looking at what is the level of motor efficiency that we're putting on this associated pump. And then additionally looking at, okay, layering in that onboard controller, integrated variable speed drive, high efficiency motor, all in a singular package, then you're looking at 7 to 10% energy savings on top of the 28% initially gained. So there's tremendous potential here, tremendous potential to be adopted across the market. And there are many companies, as you heard, that are starting to or have continued to be incredibly focused in this area of energy efficiency because of the level of impact that we can have. So speaking of level of impact, I want to take a trip to Virginia Poultry Growers Cooperative to show you just one example of the level of impact improving the efficiency of water movement technology can have. So Virginia Poultry Growers processes 30,000 turkeys a day. They're located in Virginia, founded in 2004, and they have been using kind of the same technology to run their washdown system, 300 GPM, 1000 PSI for a very long time. And interestingly, and one of the things I'll highlight here, and this is what can be fun about working in sustainability right now, is it doesn't always start with a conversation about sustainability. In the case of Virginia Poultry, it wasn't sustainability that first brought us together to have this conversation. Instead, it was actually maintenance. It was a high maintenance cost that was causing challenges to their team that started this conversation. Is there a better way to run this application? So previously, we had actually worked together with them on a Hydro MPC, another multi-pump system. And so they selected what we call our Hydro HP. So HP standing for high pressure. It's a multi-pump system together with variable speed drives and a controller to deliver high pressures while using vertical multi-stage pump technology. The new system included controls and variable speed drives so that we could adapt to the demand and conserve energy when full demand wasn't required. Additionally, the other thing that really makes this system a bit unique is that we have the use of 15 horsepower, what we call jockey pumps or pilot pumps, because we were seeing such a big change in demand where they would be, using a bunch of washdown wands during washdown and have an incredibly high demand some hours, and then maybe they'd only need one wand. And so having these really low horsepower jockey pumps or pilot pumps was a big part of the kind of aha moment to help make sure they're able to save energy in those times of low flow demand, while still having the power to be able to hit those high flow demands when the entire operation is washing down the entire facility. So they were able to reduce the pump horsepower being consumed during low flow times. So those times when they just need maybe one washdown wand in the facility, that's most of the day. We're talking about that being 16 hours of most days. This drastically reduces their energy consumption, saving 294,000 kilowatt hours per year. Then during high flow plant washdown, we were still able to also save them energy by efficiency gains, variable speed technology, and these controls. So they gained another 250,000 kilowatt hours per year saved during high flow periods. Being conservative with our estimates, it's more than a 50% reduction in energy consumption in this process, and looking at a total energy savings cost per year of $50,000, putting them on track to reach full ROI on this system in about 2.25 years. And there on the picture, you'll see one of our controls engineers actually interacting with that control. And that's really, the brains behind the operation, with pump curve data and backend data preloaded into it. It will, at any given time, be adapting to figure out what's the most efficient way for this system to work. Is it 2 pumps operating at 35% or 1 pump operating at 60 to 70%? And it is continuously using that harmony between that controller, the variable speed drives, and the pump technology to deliver this incredible savings. And for me, it's one thing to look at kilowatt hours and tons of CO2. It's another thing to kind of look at that in context of what would that mean out in the world. So using a great equivalency tool that the EPA has available on their website, we're able to see that that's equivalent to just slightly over 50 homes energy use per year. And the CO2 is equivalent to almost 92 gas-powered vehicles per year. So these are pretty big impacts, especially when you look at the fact that this is just one application within one facility that we were able to share that more efficient technology with. So a few things I want to leave you with before we take a few minutes and answer any questions anyone might have. As we look at this, I think, one of the important things is to remember, whether we're looking at more green technologies to produce energy, or the ways that we're moving, treating, and hopefully reclaiming and reusing our water, is that water and energy are incredibly interdependent, and they're both crucial on our journey to building a more sustainable, resilient future. There's a lot of technologies that exist and continue to advance to increase water and energy efficiency. These are things we have, tools that we have in our arsenal. And I believe that a big part of this journey is a journey about adoption, a journey about helping companies to understand, thinking about not just OpEx and CapEx, but starting to look at SUSEX and the sustainability impact of these moves that they're making in order to build a more sustainable way of operation. And then small changes can make a truly big impact. When we're looking at, again, pumping technology, not the first thing on everybody's sustainability checklist, and yet it's something that can make an incredible impact, all without having to sacrifice the processes and production available. So I'll leave you with this. Despite all the challenges we face in industry and beyond, I am optimistic for the future. I'm optimistic for the future because of days like today. I'm optimistic because we have technologies available and at our fingertips. And we have so many passionate people in organizations around the world working to make this resilient future possible. But this isn't a challenge that one company or one person can solve. A challenge of this magnitude truly requires and demands all of us to lean in, to use some hard-earned knowledge and ingenuity to look to the future and ask, what if we can move water, use our resources, and protect our planet in a smarter way? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Well done. And I mean, I've got all the feels from today. I'm super hopeful, which I know there's a lot of challenges we were talking about, all of these things that, the water scarcity, of course, is just, it'll put you in the state of, oh no. But then the technologies and the people and the passion behind it will put you in the hopeful space. So hopefully we understand that there is a challenge and we have the ability to make a big impact and really reduce all of the things that we need to reduce. Let's see. Great presentation from everybody, Courtney. So I don't see any questions at the moment, but y'all see there how to get in touch with Courtney. Courtney, thank you so much for your time today, for bringing the energy, for being here and listening to others' presentation. I think that also is what we have to do. We have to collaborate. We have to I love to lean into each other and accomplish some of these goals because the world needs us to. So that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Okay, so our next guest, Morello, are you here? Let me look.
I am here. Hi.
There she is. Okay. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We have just a couple of minutes before it's time for your session. But do you have a presentation or to share?
I do have a presentation.
Okay. I just
Just
wanted
a
to,
second.
since we have time, you can go ahead and share your screen, make sure all of that's working for you.
Okay. So I do have a video inside of my
It
presentation.
should work
and I'm
just
not-
fine.
Okay. See.
Sometimes I get so inspired by the presentation too, y'all. I forget my job over here. So forgive me for that. I wanted to give you a minute to just check everything and then we'll get started. Okay, good. Well, I am excited about today. I'm Charlie. For the people who are joining us, I am the founder and CEO of Empowering Pumps and Equipment. I love to empower people and businesses, and I love talking sustainability because it seems like my work throughout the years is all kind of coming together in a way that we can make a difference in our community by sharing this content, for one, sharing the passion and the people that I've gotten to connect with. And so no different here. We're going to talk about going beyond, how to create a business and a culture around sustainability. So excited about that. Morella is a business development manager at Infinitum, a manufacturer of industry disrupting electric motor systems. Quite impressive. If you haven't seen their products, take a look. Just the looking at it is impressive, but when you dive into it, even more so. Morella has spent nearly a decade engineering, building, and providing well thought out and sustainable technical solutions. She specializes in both hydronic and air movement applications in data center space and is an active member of ASHRAE since 2018. Many more, I'm sure, things that you have done, but I'll let you kind of take it from here. And thank you for being here.
All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. My name is Morella, and I am so excited to have the opportunity to speak to you today. We certainly think about sustainability a lot at Infinitum. So Infinitum is an electric motor plus drive manufacturer located here in beautiful Austin, Texas. I mainly specialize in data center applications. So this is the lens through which I'm observing the pump and HVAC industries. It has become increasingly evident that sustainability is no longer a luxury or a trend. In my experience, sustainability is actually the cornerstone of a successful and resilient business. Well, what we have seen in our industry is that the end users and even the communities where our products are installed are no longer satisfied with solutions that merely meet their needs. There really is a demand for products that are better for both people and the planet. And this is exactly what we do at Infinitum. We are a motor manufacturer, but we go beyond efficiency and aim to impact the planet and the industries where our products are installed in a positive way. Today, I want to delve into the essentials of building and nurturing a culture of sustainability within a business. And I will be using Infinitum as my example. From defining a foundational mission and values to embracing circular product design and manufacturing processes to ensuring customer success, each aspect plays a crucial role in shaping the sustainable future that we all envision. But before we really dive in and highlight each of Infinitum's values, let's hear it from my coworkers.
I'm not hearing the volume on my side.
Yeah, the volume is missing. I'm sorry. It's on our website.
Sounds good. We'll find the link for it. They do get to see the product. So there's that.
And my coworkers look great. I love all of them. So it's always nice to see their happy faces.
Yes. Motivating.
Hey,
Like, I know
Charlie.
them. I know them. Yes.
I found it on YouTube. I could share it for you if you wanted, Morella.
Okay. Yeah, sure. We can do that.
Okay, Becca, are you just taking over the screen? Okay, test number 2. I still don't hear anything.
Fine. We can just post the link.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. IT's not happy with us. We've been on here too long. Okay, so Becca, if you want to, is that you sharing or? Yeah. Okay, so back to the presentation. But basically, they have a great culture over there. They are a lot of fun, and I've been through their plant as well, which is really quite impressive. So we're like reset, and it's back to you.
Yeah, we're back in business. Okay, so we know that motors have the opportunity to impact the planet in a very meaningful way, right? According to the US Department of Energy, electric motors consume more than 50% of all electrical energy in the US. Every product that we buy and every service that we subscribe to has a motor behind it. The data that we are consuming right now to have this Zoom session is processed by a data center somewhere. And this data is cooled, this data center is cooled by using motors. There are millions of motors put into service each year. If those motors can be more efficient, less resource intensive, smaller and quieter, then these motors will help us bend the curve on climate change and really impact the communities they're installed in a positive way. There is no silver bullet for climate change, but Infinitum is committed to being one of those factors, positive change. We look at every aspect of the motor from design to serviceability to end of life. One of my favorite books is How Innovation Works by Matt Ridley. If you're a history / science nerd and get excited about innovation, then this is the book for you. There are a few key takeaways that I have been thinking a lot about as a manufacturer. First, innovation is always a gradual, not a sudden thing. Infinitum did not invent the concept of an electric motor. We did not invent the bearings that we use in our product. But our founder, Ben Schuler, saw where his idea of using a PCB stator can drastically improve electric motors and change the motor industry for the better. Next, one of the critical components of innovation is learning by doing and iterating over and over again. And finally, innovation often disappoints in its early years, and we underestimate the impact of innovation in the long run. New technology adoption often takes quite a bit of time, but it's exciting to see where companies like Infinitum are really pushing the envelope and redefining what's possible in terms of efficiency, design, serviceability, or raw materials usage. Another one of our values is trust through transparency. All this innovation would be meaningless without our customers, right? Transparent communication and accountability build trust with our customers, stakeholders, and also one another. One of our industry partners just mentioned something last week that really resonated with me. Business culture is different everywhere, but here in the States, the relationships that we build with our customers and vendors often carry more weight than, for example, lead times or in some cases, even pricing. And I have also had a few customers in the past who first have an informal in-person meeting with our team to verify that we're, real humans, and only discuss business once they have verified that they would enjoy working with us. We also put a lot of emphasis on empowering our customers by providing the knowledge, the tools, and support that they need. To give you an example, Infinitum has an evaluation unit program. Each new customer is paired with one of our talented sales application engineers who walk the customer through every step of the process. They work with the customer to select the correct motor, connect the customer with our pump or fan OEM partners, help them with the wiring, and provide training. So our goal is really to become a trusted, reliable partner to our customers instead of just being a vendor. Now let's turn our attention to product design and manufacturing, areas where significant strides can be made towards sustainability. By adopting a circular economy mindset, we can minimize waste, we can maximize resource efficiency, and we can prolong product life cycles. This involves reimagining traditional manufacturing models and embracing practices such as product remanufacturing and recycling. By designing products with recyclability in mind, we can reduce our environmental impact while simultaneously enhancing the value that we deliver to our customers. Most people are surprised to hear that we now have easy type motors that can be easily remanufactured and repaired. When most motors fail, they end up in in the landfill, like we do with our old microwaves. Infinitum's motor is modular like a Lego, which lets us quickly isolate the part that needs fixing. This keeps motors in service. This proves that electric motors don't need to be disposable or difficult to service. We can repair and resolve issues quickly. We also want our engineers to experiment, iterate, fail quickly, move on to the next thing. This is a crucial component of innovation. To give you an example, copper in conventional motors is wound around an iron core. In our motors, we use about 60% less copper because of an innovation in the stator technology using printed circuit boards. Recently, we actually found ways to use even less copper thanks to our iterative processes. Now, some might ask, does all this really matter to our customers? The team that I'm a member of works mainly on data center applications where topics like Scope 3 emissions and PUE, power usage effectiveness, often come up. So it's very fulfilling to see that Infinitum's technology is actually able to make a difference and also get our customers closer to their own sustainability goals. Last but not least, synchronicity and heart. I attended a data center conference last week. We had a wonderful women's lunch event where someone said, diverse communities are sustainable. And this is something that really resonated with me as a woman, as a non-native English speaker, and as an immigrant in the US. We can't talk about sustainability without mentioning diversity of thought or background or gender, identity, and so on. Business can have the best product in the world, but if they struggle with attracting and retaining employees or customers, then this amazing product will not get adopted, and all the work the company put in will be for nothing. So walking into the office and hearing so many different languages and seeing folks from so many different backgrounds always motivates me to keep working in this industry. I would like to end this session by providing food for thought and hopefully igniting a spark in the audience. Let's ask ourselves, as a hiring manager, how can I personally contribute to a more sustainable company culture? Or as a product engineer, how can I design for circularity and serviceability? Or as a member of this industry, is there anything that I have always wanted to change about the product or technology? There's always something that we can do to make the products we design or the environments that we work or live in more sustainable in every meaning of the word. Thomas Edison once said, innovation is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Great accomplishments depend far more on hard work and gradual improvements than sudden aha moments. I really believe that every business can make improvements if sustainability is used as their guiding star. So I can't wait to see where this industry goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done. I'm like, did y'all talk to each other? Did y'all get a meeting today or this week and get all on the same page? It just means that we are in the right place. Y'all definitely connect with her and make sure that we are sharing these stories. I just feel like there's such resources out there that such examples of people, you know, and products and just vision, culture. And I think that when we get these thought leaders together on our virtual summits, it's so fun. It's just so encouraging. And I think that that's a little bit what you're talking about coming into work. You hear all the different voices and people and cultures and companies, and they're all working together to make a better world for us and our children. So with that, I hope y'all have had a wonderful day. I know I have. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any. I just see a lot of, you know, excellent job, which I can reinforce there. And just thank you and your team. Thank you everybody who has joined us from this morning for being here. And so think about that one little thing that you can do for our borrowed blue dot. Love it. Thank y'all so much. I'll see you next time. And this will be on demand. So if y'all missed anything, we will have a link to it. Yeah, thanks again. Well done.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Charlie.
Bye. So good to see you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Hey, Anita. See y'all later. Bye-bye.